But the best example of women sort of falling is that I can give you is women who become involved in escort agencies or sort of that legal portion of the sex trade. Because the truth is, with an escort agency, they're not selling sex. Because an escort agency, it's a legitimate business. That's why they run and they have ads all over the place. They're a legitimate business because they, thank you, because they're not selling sex. They're selling companionship. So they're saying, if you're lonely, if you're here in town and you've got something special to go to, and you want to bring a beautiful woman with you who can be like your friend for the evening and that sort of thing, then come to us. You know, and a lot of people, a lot of men in particular, say, that's a great idea. But we all know the truth about what's really happening. Because if you work in an escort agency, your boss will never tell you this outright, but they might hint at it for you. There's certain things that men who use escort agencies really like. So the younger you look is great. So I have a friend who worked in an escort agency. She was 18 or 19 in British Columbia, but her job was to look 16. You know, that's interesting to me, but that was her job, was to look 16. But that people were looking for a 16-year-old is disturbing, but yet she was of age, and so, you know, I can't judge, and it was supposed to be about companionship. The other thing that can happen in an escort agency is you'll quickly learn that customers will tip, and they can also write online reviews about you. So you can get a tip if you're a party girl. So a party girl is going to drink and maybe indulge in some, if I've got a little bit of, you know, say I got a little bit of dope at this party or whatever, my party girl might have some of that, and she's going to lighten up, and she's going to be fun, and it's going to be really great to be in her company, just like any one of the other guests. But what happens for a lot of women is that if they want those extra tips, then they become a party girl. They have sex because they get a little bit of extra. They get recurring customers then, which is nice to have because then you're a whole lot safer if you always know who's coming versus a bunch of strange guys. So it's nice to have like your regular customers because you can deal with them. But then what happens when the drugs become involved in the alcohol and you're too much the party girl is that you become addicted. That's what drugs and alcohol do to many of us, right? Not everybody, but to many of us. And so these girls often find themselves addicted, and after a while, when you're addicted, you don't look so good anymore. So you don't look like the bright-eyed, fresh-skinned 16-year-old. You don't look like the beautiful companion that I'm going to take to this party with me. And what happens is you start to act out a little bit too. So your behavior becomes a bit erratic, you get more grumpy than you usually are, your teeth start to fall out, your skin looks horrible, your hair looks horrible, you lose a ton of weight, and you can't be trusted to behave properly in public if I'm going to take you to a fancy party. So what happens is that the regular customers start to disappear, and the reviews that they write online about you aren't so good anymore. And maybe they were never good. If you didn't have sex or weren't really a lot of fun, they probably said nasty things about you anyways. And being reviewed in terms of your womanhood or your sexiness and that, I find distasteful anyways, but, you know, I think there are probably some women who don't, but me personally, I do. But it's not against the law, and so, but with this drug use, what happens is you start to look not so good. You don't get as many customers anymore, you're sure not getting the tips anymore, and after a while your boss says, you're fired. Because no one wants to hire you. So you're fired. And so then what's my alternative? So I'm highly addicted to crack cocaine or to meth, which is one of the sort of most common drugs that women who fall sort of prey to this situation. I think maybe because it's cheaper or something, or it's a quick high, I'm not really sure why. But meth does horrible things to your body. And it really does terrible things to your thinking, as does crack cocaine and any other drug that's used too much. And what happens is that the women at this point now can't even think of what to do. They don't even know. They're so addicted, they're so sick, they look horrible, that, you know, they're fired, and now they're going, what am I going to do? And most of them say, the only thing I can do is I might as well just work for myself, or maybe I'll work for somebody who will give me some protection. And within months, like for my friend, it happened in a matter of less than 6 months. That she was this beautiful, paid to look like 16 escort. She told me in the beginning she was very proud of how she handled herself. She was very on the straight and narrow. This was a job to get her through school. She wanted to become a nurse. And then it soon became she wasn't fun enough, so she had to start being fun. Next thing you know, she's completely addicted. Within 3 months, she's fired from her job, and now she's down on the street trying to find customers. So taking it indoors into brothels and escort agencies and all of that kind of stuff in terms of legalization does nothing to keep women safe. It does nothing to, because, and if they're in that place in the first place, so if it's a woman who's been working outside like the street or been, working the back alleys or whatever for long enough, she probably already is looking pretty rough, and she's not going to get a job in an escort agency or anything like that anyways. And so if we legalize brothels, or we sort of legalize sex trade across Canada, first of all, women aren't any safer because there's such a correlation between drugs and violence. The violence against women is incredible. And who can afford a bodyguard? Like, maybe 10, 12% of the women who are working sort of independently, they're their own bosses, and maybe they have helpers or bodyguards or assistants or whatever. That's sure not the norm. That's not what we see. In fact, I don't think I've yet met one woman in, over 2 years here that ever had that kind of money. I've met one that did until lived in a fancy condo, all sorts of stuff, turned tricks for a gang. Beautiful. They paid for all sorts of like breast implants and plastic surgery for her, so she would be the best looking ever. But again, she within months was totally addicted to cocaine, and her keepers or her pimp were mad at her for some reason, knocked out her teeth, and by the time she ended up here, she had a piece of gum that she would put where her missing tooth was. Because at that point she was also so impoverished there was no dental care or anything that she could afford either. So so it's not glamorous, and there are people that advocate and that say that this is a woman's choice. Well, it's a choice with no reasonable alternative.